Hey there, on today's podcast, when we interview Skip Willcox, you can expect to learn a couple things. What's going on with the mortgage industry, especially the wholesale channel. Even if you're not in the mortgage industry, you'll want to stick around because Skip owns a coaching company called Kairos that does sales training for all kinds of industry. We will talk about why the new Star Wars movies are not as bad as everybody thinks, and you'll learn why we should start and end our day reviewing metrics so that you know you were a success or there's some areas that you need some improvement. Enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Scott Groves here with my new friend, Skip Willcox, who is the host of the podcast Big Skip Energy, which that's my new favorite name for a podcast, by the way. I know that you're the owner of Kairos Sales Training. You also still work in the mortgage industry. We're going to make this quick and dirty and to the point because we've only got about an hour. You got to hard out. The first thing I got to bring up for those listening to the podcast and not watching this on YouTube, your entire bookcase behind you is covered in Star Wars memorabilia, toys, Legos. I love it, dude.
Yeah.
But we have to address the elephant in the room. Like, do you like the new Star Wars stuff, or has Disney just totally lost its way?
You know, I enjoy it.
Okay.
I enjoy it. It's totally different from the original trilogy. I think I'd be an idiot if I said otherwise. But you know what? I just don't try. I try and take it at face value and enjoy it for entertainment. I'm not going to be ashamed to admit, hey, you know what? I read Star Wars books. I know all the stuff that is and isn't supposed to be like official. I don't care. I love the story. It's fun.
I love it. Yeah, I'm a junkie for post-apocalyptic books. I think I've got like 500 titles in my Audible, and probably 250 of them are post-apocalyptic. There's only so many times you can read about the EMP, you would think, that ends the world, but I've got 150 books that talk about the solar flare and the EMP that takes us all out, and we descend into Mad Max. So let's kick
on Thunderdome, baby.
Yeah, exactly. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Let's jump right into your sales training, because I think there's a lot of people in the mortgage industry that undercut ourselves and our value. We don't realize that we have a really unique skill set where we have to sell B2B, because we got to go business to realtors and financial planners and professionals. But then we have to take off that hat and put on the B2C hat and sell business to consumer. So I think, any loan officer who's worth their salt and has carved out more than a 10 plus year career could probably be some version of a sales trainer or a coach. It's just very few of them actually step up and do it. So tell us about your sales coaching, what you do, what you believe in. Yeah, give us the 60-second Reader's Digest of your life. I know you got 3 kids, but where are you at? Where are you coming from? And then let's dig into your sales training.
All right, guys. So I hail from the beautiful state of Georgia. I grew up in metro Atlanta. Now I'm down in the rural part of the state. I'm married, got 3 kids. Love it. Love being a family man. It is, but it's funny you say that, because about the sales training thing, man, it does seem like anybody who's done this for any period of time, and I've been in the mortgage business for about 21-ish years now, seen a bunch of stuff come and go. Feels like you just sharing those experiences helps people out, right?
Yeah.
But the reason I got into this, dude, was I started getting more and more questions after I transitioned from origination to wholesale. Because when I first got in the business, I was secondary, right? I did secondary marketing for a while. Then I was an originator or in origination management for 10 years. And then I've been in wholesale the last decade or so, right? And a lot of people kept asking me for help. Like, Skip, hey, I know you've sold in up markets, down markets, in rural, in urban. You help me out, please. So I started doing it kind of off the cuff, right? And, that got to be more and more of a thing. And about 4 or 5 years ago, dude, I just decided to go ahead and make it formal, and make it a thing. It's always been, I hate the term side hustle, but, it's been that. It's been a lot of fun, right now focused on training originators, bankers, credit unions, realtors, all the ancillary businesses too, man. So yeah, that's the down and dirty of how I got into it, just demand. And I decided to make it a formal thing.
So you mentioned that you're still working in the wholesale space.
Yes.
Can you define for somebody that maybe is not perfectly literate in the mortgage space, or even some mortgage loan officers that have no clue what they're talking about, what is the wholesale space when we talk about mortgage origination, and where does that fill the void in like a consumer trying to buy a home?
I'm glad you asked that because it's actually surprisingly not very well understood in our business. In fact, I have some people on the retail side of the company I work for even say, "Can you? I'm sorry to ask you this. Can you tell me what you really do?" I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean, I'll be glad to explain it to you." So, but yeah, wholesale for those of y'all that don't know is essentially when you've got a broker that you're going to do business with. The broker has to find some person to buy those loans and sell those loans to, and that is where we step in. We provide the funding, we provide underwriting for those types of transactions, and allows brokers to do what they do best, and that's go out there and build relationships, help clients out. They're usually small entrepreneurial folks. They don't have the capacity. They're not a bank. They don't have warehouse lines. Now I'm not going to go into the difference between wholesale and non-delegated correspondent. That's getting a little too much into the weeds. But straight wholesale. Think mortgage broker. You go see them. They're experts at helping you out, finding the right loan for you. But they have to get that loan from someplace, and so they partner with multiple wholesalers, which is what I am. And they shop it around to find the best rate, term, product, etc., for the consumer out there. And that's so think of it as us enabling the middleman.
Yeah, I love that. And what I think a lot of people don't understand if they go to a broker, that broker's not playing with their own money. They don't have $500,000 to fund the loan and then sell it. Or maybe for whatever reason, they can't qualify for a $10 million line of credit to fund the loan and then, sell it on the back end. So you guys work as that conduit to buy loans in America. Do you have any insight to what volume or percentage of loans ends up with a bank, like Bank of America or something, or it gets wholesaled out to a company like yours?
Yeah. So if we kind of write that or put that line in the sand, right, between what could be called a retail bank, think of a Bank of America, Chase, Wells, whatever you want to call it. And then, an IMB, right? IMB stands for Independent Mortgage Banker. So that's somebody that does exactly, Scott, what you mentioned. They have access to funds that they draw off of to help fund loans, and they just kind of churn those over and over and over again. You use a line of credit, right? But the percentage is probably now, it used to be flipped over. Now it's more heavily driven towards that broker business. It's probably 60-40 IMB to bank. And of that IMB, a lot of those have their own retail shops. But I'd say a good chunk of the business now is driven through a wholesaler. Brokers have enjoyed a big uptick in business over the last several years, thanks in part to obviously a lot of efforts through AIM and lots of different marketing efforts by some of the larger wholesalers as well. So it's something that has grown. And and this may be getting off on a tangent, Scott. I don't know if
I love
you
it.
want to talk about it or not, but the whole brokers are better thing, right? I got no beef with it. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think that for the consumer, what's best for them may be working for a broker. It may be working with a retail LO. It could be going to see their bank. It's whatever they feel is the best decision for them. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule. I know that whenever I share that, people sometimes say, "Oh, you're just trying to be wishy-washy and make everybody happy." No, I firmly believe that. Just like you could take two LOs at the exact same company, and I think that a consumer A works better with one over the other.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's personal preference. It's comfort level. As long as they get that transaction done securely, they get it done well, their needs are met. Yeah. What else could you ask for?
It's funny because the only thing that brokers and I'll call them retail loan officers, they work at, Neo Home Loans, Movement Mortgage Guild, New American Funding, whatever. The only thing they seem to have in common is they all like to poo-poo on bank loan officers, right? Yeah. The one that sits inside the bank at Wells Fargo or B of A. And usually we're mad at those people because they come in and out of the market and they'll just have an unbeatable rate at certain times in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. But, I have the same opinion when I coach loan officers. It's if you're more entrepreneurial and you want to go build your own thing, great, go be a broker. Yeah. If you're like me and you don't want to have to figure out how to buy a secure shredder or deal with state compliance officers, I fit better at a mortgage bank. Conversely, I've got a buddy who she was a failure. She would be the first to admit it in the standard retail banking model. She went and worked at a bank, Wells Fargo, And now she's doing 70, 80 million dollars alone. And it's a pretty great way to make 300-400 grand a year working 9 to 5. And the client doesn't call you on the weekends because they know you work at the bank. So it's like,
yeah, you got banker's hours.
Yeah, different strokes for different folks, man.
Yeah, it's all about it's just like the consumer. It's what the best fit for the LO is, That's why, I mean, let's just look at real estate firms, dude. I mean, there's not everyone's a good fit for every type of real estate firm out there, and they all kind of do the same thing. Some of them look down on others, and it's just personal fit. Where can you be the most successful, right?
I love it, man. So let's talk about that. How do you help salespeople? And I know your coaching is a little bit more broad than the coaching that I run.
Yeah.
Because you'll work with, salespeople, personal bankers, tellers inside a credit union, or you'll work with realtors and whatnot. What is kind of the ethos or the backbone of your sales coaching? Is it systems? Is it marketing? Is it accountability? Do you have a super secret Facebook funnel? Like what's, yeah, exactly. What's your story?
There's no secret sauce. First, I'm glad you asked that because, and you've been doing this a long time too, and I think you'll agree with me on this, that two people can get up in front of a group or an audience, have the exact same message, have the same slides behind you, have the same words that come out of your mouth, and different people in that audience will respond better to one versus the other. And I think that's what we forget about in coaching and training a lot, is that, again, it goes back to that connection. A lot of times, mortgage sales managers or chief lending officers in institutions, they'll come to me and say, Skip, what do you do? And I'll go through a couple of main things, right? They'll say, yeah, I've been trying to say that same thing to them forever, but they just don't get it. I was like, well, you know what? Maybe my voice will do it instead. It's like, there's no magic pill for this.
Right.
But at the same time, there are certain tenets that you can always take to the bank that will, for a bad pun, sorry, but that you can always count on, that are going to be themes in training. And for me, I really approach it two different ways. I am a framework guy when you get down to the nitty gritty, like handling objections and prospecting, that kind of thing. But I call them critical skills. Most people call them soft skills. I'm a firm believer in communication and that human connection within an organization, within someone's sphere of influence, within their referral base, whatever the case may be. I really try and focus on that. That's kind of, I guess, for lack of a better term, my niche.
Yeah. Hey there, Scott Groves with a quick interruption to the podcast. Sorry about that, but I just want to take a quick minute to announce our sponsors here for the podcast, and that sponsor is me, Scott Groves. It's actually the revenue that we generate through doing mortgages here at Neo Home Loans, and the money that we generate from the coaching program that I run, Consolidated Coaching for Loan Officers, coaching by loan officers for loan officers, that helps support this podcast. I really started this in 2021 as a passion project during COVID, and we're excited to bring you a new episode every week. But this only happens if I'm making money in my real full-time job. So please, if you or somebody you know is looking to buy, sell, or refinance a house, our team is licensed in almost every state in the country. And if you know a loan officer who's looking for sales coaching, personal development coaching, lead generation coaching, please get in touch with us. Scott at the Scott Groves team. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love for you to support our other endeavors, which is mortgage financing and loan officer coaching, which allows this podcast to exist. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. I love that. And I want to dig into that a little bit more, because I think about this sometimes. Like, people will say things like, oh, salesmen are born, they're not made, or, you either got it or you don't got it, blah, 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 blah. Do you think the super gregarious, outgoing extrovert that has no problem getting on stage in front of 1,000 people in the sales business will be more successful, less successful? Is it possible to be equally successful if you're the accountant type who goes and sits at your desk with a brown bag lunch, and you're more of an introvert and you're winning through maybe systems and process versus like personality and outgoingness? Like, how do you balance that? Because obviously every organization has those two different types of people and everything in between.
Yeah, and everything in between. It's like, so the answer to that question is that they're going to have, the outgoing person, they're going to have an easier time doing certain things, have a harder time doing others. The more introverted person will have an easier time doing the other stuff and have a harder time. Either way, they're going to have to fall back on their strengths, but they can't neglect the other pieces. I know a really, really high producer over on the East Coast here who he is a numbers guy. He is a economics reports. I'm going to translate these to my referral base. That's what I go. Very, very, very numbers and quantitative driven. I've got a really good friend of mine up in the Dakotas. She is much more of a qualitative person. She always leans on connecting with that person. Now, I'm sure you know her, Kayla Calendar.
I know the name. I don't know her
You know
personally.
the name, yeah. She's great at really finding and strengthening that human connection. They both appeal to different types of people, and obviously there's going to be crossover too, but they have to work on the other parts. Kayla, I think she would be willing to say, "Hey, look, yeah, I need to maybe brush up on some of the market stuff that I could learn more about to better help my customers." Whereas, the gentleman that I'm referring to, Mark, he could probably say sometimes, yeah, I do get a little bit too far down the weeds. Maybe I could do X, Y, or Z to kind of appeal to a broader base. But at the same time, they're falling back on their strengths, right? It's what's got them success. So you can't discount that either.
Yeah, yeah. And then what about managing yourself, right? Because like you obviously a pretty outgoing guy, but much like me, you're doing a lot of things. You have a full-time job doing wholesale, then you run the podcast, then you run the coaching business. Like I'm sure if we compared calendars, we would be equally amazed at how much gets done in a given day when, I don't know, you don't watch TV or watch reruns of Star Wars episodes or whatnot. But how do you manage yourself as a coach, and where do you fall? Are you the more outgoing, gregarious guy? Are you a numbers guy, systems guy? You can sit down at the computer and knock out 70 things at once. Like, tell us more about, Skip.
So I would say, I'm definitely more the outgoing type. I do rely heavily on numbers, and I'm very much a math guy as well. Though what I struggle with is that I unfortunately have the curse of confidence, and so that means that a lot of times I will just be like, oh, okay, no, I don't have to really schedule out my day, or I don't have to think about it. It's fine. It's fine. You know, so that's what I struggle with, is being sure that I dominate my day instead of it dominating me. So that's the biggest thing for me, is being sure that I get everything taken care of during the day that I need to, without scrambling around with undue stress. So, we all have our struggles, right?
Mm. Totally. I'm trying to get better at saying no to things because I end up spreading
Yes.
myself a little too thin. And yeah, oh, it'll work out. Yeah, sure. Why not do that new project? Oh, yeah. Why not
Exactly.
build
It's like,
that new
it sounds
AI
like a
bot?
great idea. Let's do it. And then 2 weeks later, you're like, shit, I forgot I committed to do that.
Totally. So we actually thank you, by the way, for being accommodating. We had to reschedule this podcast because I had people in town. I had a women's group in town that we were coaching. Then I had a men's group in town that was coaching. And then I had 2 days of catch up on mortgage. And like by the time we were supposed to film Friday night, I was like, I feel like shit and I am out of energy. I cannot, I cannot talk for 2 more hours.
Exactly.
So,
So, yeah.
going back to your coaching, I want to flesh this out a little bit more. Like, tell us a little bit about like your program and the cadence, because one of the challenges I think when people come to coaching is they expect everything at once. I'm going to solve all my problems. I'm going to get my schedule, my script, everything. I'm like, no. Coaching is kind of like drinking out of a fire hose. Eventually, you just got to pour your own cup and figure out what works for you. So tell us, like, you're working with a brand new salesperson. Maybe they're mildly successful. They're closing 3 or 4 deals a month in the mortgage space, or a deal a month in real estate, or they're selling 10 widgets, but they really want to go to sell 20 widgets. Like, where do you start?
So for me personally, whenever I'm talking to somebody that is thinking about doing coaching with me, I do have a few prerequisites. I tend to only work with folks that are newer to the business and don't have a lot to unlearn, or folks that are already very successful but need to have that next little marginal improvement kind of pushed over. I don't typically go into that middle ground unless I really see something in somebody that I think they're really going to get out of their comfort zone and try.
Yeah.
And so that's typically where I fall. Because before I do any coaching, I do 2 things. I do an assessment, and I do usually a free session just to see if we connect, right? There's no
Right.
point in them spending money or me wasting my time with somebody that I don't work well with. And vice versa, right? So yeah, we always do that. And then, at the end of that, if it's something that they want to keep going with, we'll do it. But yeah, anybody that's expecting to be spoon fed that works with me is going to be sorely disappointed. I make it very clear up front that yeah, I'm going to provide you with some frameworks to handle certain very specific things, but by and large, the sessions and the time that we spend together are going to be driven by you, the client. I'm not going to have all the answers for you. What my job is to help you get to the answers.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to be kind of that little lighthouse guiding you through the rocks to get you to the shore, right? And that's the type that I work best with. Now, there's nothing wrong with folks that provide a curriculum and have a very set, hey, this is a canned approach because you know what you're getting into. And that's for a lot of people. A lot of people respond well to that. I do more of the let's talk it out. You've got something you're struggling with. Let's find out why. Let's talk through it. So it's very personalized and very individualized.
I love that, man. Have you read the book by chance, The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay?
Not.
It's a phenomenal book. To me, it's like either top one or top two coaching books in the world. And it's basically talking about what you just said, where it's like a coach doesn't have to have all the answers. They just have to be able to ask the right questions. And this book is about like the 7 questions. And I feel like I've read that book enough times that I could get on a call with somebody who works in the coal mining industry, which I don't know shit about. I don't know the difference. I don't know anything about natural resources, whatever. But I feel like asking these questions, like I could still add some value to somebody's life by just being that lighthouse. So that's, you and I are very aligned with that, because I'm not all about, no offense to them. I know they're the 800-pound gorilla in the room and they've had a lot of success and they've had a lot of successful people. But the idea of me being like the core, do these 19 things every week.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
That's
these.
what gets me a lot of, a lot of my customers is they find out about that and you're like, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to be told, talked at. I want to have something more conversational. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not for everybody, right?
Yeah. It's not for me. Like I don't need to eat dog food on stage because I didn't make 52 calls on Monday. It's just not my jam. So
tell like a fantasy football losing bet there.
Oh, 100%. Been there. I just stopped playing fantasy football and watching sports because I was so bad at it. Tell us about, I'm always interested, how are you marketing yourself in the wholesale world, right? Because I think maybe one of the dangers of being a broker is like, you bring up your rate sheet, oh, they're the cheapest, I'm going to go with them. It's like, well, maybe there's some guidelines, or maybe there's a relationship with somebody like Skip, or maybe there's like an underwriter that you need or whatever. So how are you marketing the wholesale to go out to that B2B world in business and find brokers who might want to build a relationship with you, trust you enough to send you the deal, and then, hopefully you guys perform at a high level so then they can send you the next 20 deals. And then how is that different from what I would think is maybe a little bit more of an emotional connection versus like a business strategic connection of marketing to loan officers, realtors, banks, things of that nature? Like, walk us through a little bit of like the marketing portal of Skip.
So let me start off by saying, 5x5 Funding is the name of my wholesale company. Okay. That's not mine, but the one that I run wholesale for. And we do business with banks, credit unions, and brokers. Okay. And when I say banks and credit unions, I mean on a TPO or third party basis, where they are essentially a broker just at a financial institution. Right. And I specialize in working with the financial institutions on this. That's what I've done almost my entire wholesale career. And the reason for that is because I've got a banking background. I spent a lot of time in banking, and so that has really helped me kind of connect with them and understand kind of what they go through day in and day out. To answer your question about the marketing piece, though, it's funny you say the thing about the rate sheet. Part of working in the financial industry or financial institution sector is that they do tend to be a little bit more old fashioned, right? I actually had a customer that she would get the rates or the rate sheet every day in PDF, just the distribution email. She'd print that sucker out, file it away. And this was like 2 years ago. This wasn't like in 1999 either. So, and of course, it got everything in between. It always cracked me up when I go visit her office. I see that binder sitting out there. I was like, you can just ask me what the rates are, right? I can look it up. But anyway, I actually don't publish a rate sheet. I'll send out rate indicators for a couple of key products, but I don't even bother doing that. I want to drive people to use our scenario pricer if they have a legitimate, scenario. Because as most of the folks that are going to be listening to this know, rate sheets don't tell you shit, right? You
Right.
got to do all the math, all the LLPAs and this and that, and you're liable to make a mistake anyway. Plus, the way we price as a best X model, the price is going to be stale as soon as it comes out anyway. So it's not even worth the virtual paper it's printed on.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, I take the selling off the price, for price off the table. Obviously we need to be competitive. That's just not our value proposition.
Yeah.
It's always going to be, hey, we know what you go through day in and day out. We're going to help you, make your life easier. That's what we do. So we get heavily involved in the trade groups and other organizations that focus on credit unions and banks, and just really go after that.
Are those as boring as I'm imagining? Like a trade
Yes,
group,
they are.
a
Yes,
trade
they
group
are.
with a bunch of bankers and federal credit union COOs. I can't think of a group of people
That's a lively bunch.
less respect,
No.
like less receptive than Scott Groves. That would not be my zone of genius.
So there are definitely some that are better than others. It's like, so it's funny. The very first South Carolina Bankers Association conference I went to when I first got into wholesale, I was at their annual meeting. I walk out. This is on Kiowa Island, I think is where it's over off South Carolina. And I'm going through like 7:30 in the morning, setting up my trade show booth. And I see this. I mean, this gentleman had to be easily late 70s, early 80s. He's already walking around the trade show, just kind of looking at what everybody's setting up. Dude's got a scotch in his hand already.
Okay, maybe I
So
would like these people.
I was going to say they do have the ability to throw down. They just do it a little bit more covertly, I think.
There you go.
Yeah, it's not going to be like the old mortgage brokers conventions back in the or early 2000s. But yeah, man. I mean, they're always a good crew. The conferences aren't bad. I mean, it's something you have to be involved in, though. Like, for example, I'll sponsor a lot of the educational pieces that talk about TRID changes, everything, all the compliance stuff that they have to really, really get invested in.
Yeah.
I'll sponsor that. That's a good way to get in and talk to people and talk about what matters to them.
Yeah.
So,
Because these are the groups when you're dealing financial institution to financial institution, a little independent broker sitting in Raleigh, North Carolina, they don't have deep enough pockets for the CFPB to come after. But if you screw the pooch on like your company dealing with a large multi-branch federal credit union, that's the thing that can really cost some money with compliance, right?
Yeah, 100%, man. That's why you gotta be sure that you're buttoned up. Before I came on board here, the focus was more on brokers, and which is fine. Obviously there's nothing wrong with that, and we do plenty of business with the traditional broker side as well. But when I was going through the due diligence that the customer will do on us, they're like, we've never been asked these questions before, wanting all types of insurance policies and financials and this, that, and the other. It's like, yep, it's a different world. They're gonna do just as much work, if not more, that we do on them. So,
Yeah.
but they have to. I mean, they're not doing it for shits and giggles.
It's crazy to me, like when I think of like bankers making decisions, I'm like, oh, there's a board of directors, and then they do this, and then they do all their, scouting and compliance, and then there's a meeting, and then there's another meeting. And It sounds like these trade shows, it's just back to old school relationships matter, right? You build a relationship with that guy who had a scotch in his hand. He's going to give you, a return phone call. That's going to give you an opportunity to get in the room. It's just crazy. Like, it doesn't matter how big you get. Every business is still a relationship business.
Well, it's because they do business like we do. They base their business on relationships where the customer's more than a number. It's the same type of thing. And they recognize and appreciate that. And I've been around enough now where they see me, they know kind of what they're going to get with that.
Cool.
And
So
there's a certain level of inherent trust there.
I like that on the wholesale side. Talk about how that carries over to coaching.
Yeah. Well, which aspect of it?
Just finding the client, right? Like building that relationship with them. Are you doing it digitally? Are you speaking at keynotes? Is it all referral based? Like, how are you finding your quote unquote side hustle?
Two main ways. It's going to be through keynote speaking and word of mouth. I don't advertise. I don't really. It's funny. I've actually got the conference I'm going to this week is a bank trainer conference, and so it's right up my alley, right? This is going to be one of the few times I actually go out there fully as Cairo's sales group to actually say, hey, look, this is what we do. You may want to consider bringing us on for this. But other than that, it's very word of mouth driven. At this point, because I do so much, just like you do, I've had to cap the number of people that I can have as on my coaching roster. I just can't do it.
Right.
It's too, because it's not a canned approach.
Right.
I can't have 45 people sitting in a Zoom conference room, right?
Right.
It takes a lot of time. I'd be sure that accessible to them via text, email, phone, whatever they need, and so with that, I've had to cap it. So, but that also helps me ensure that they get the service that they need, want, and frankly have paid for. But back to your question, yeah, I don't advertise. I don't do a whole lot. I just get a lot of word of mouth referrals. One of the classes I teach is on building a referral business. I practice what I preach, and in that, my coaching clients, I'll always ask throughout the time together, give me some names. So
I love it, man. Old school life insurance sales, right? Like
who
do you got who do you have in your database who just had a kid? Oh, who do you know that just got married? All the old school insurance techniques.
But it's funny because that's the shit that nobody does anymore. COVID ruined it. It ruined it.
Yeah.
Even folks that did a good job at it, fell out of the habit, in 2020, 2021, and now they're rusty as hell. So it was like, hell, you see it every day. Tell me if I'm wrong, right?
No, all the time. I think COVID and the diffusion of the workspace in the mortgage industry was a end result net negative. Like, I heard Scott Galloway, the guy that does a podcast, Professor G, Prof G show. He was talking about how I get it. Work from home is an amazing benefit. Some people can thrive there. He's like, but the end of the day, ideas have to have sex to spawn other ideas. Yeah. And those ideas only bounce into each other if you're having a long form conversation like this, or you're shooting the shit around the water cooler. And I know there's a lot of lost time working in an office, but there's also a bunch of pickups on relationship, continuity, something that could be a 5-second conversation ends up being 40 emails back and forth. It's just, I don't think the mortgage business is better off.
I teach against, but no, it's an unpopular opinion. I am not, let's keep everybody remote guy. I'm not, I'm cool with a hybrid thing, coming in sometimes, whatever the case may be. It's very difficult now, not even just from getting them out of the habit kind of thing, but also just logistically. People have hired from all over the place now, and you can't really expect somebody to come into the Atlanta office that underwrites from Minnesota or something, right?
Yeah,
it's tough, but I'm definitely not a let's keep everybody out of the office guy. That's not exactly a popular call these days.
Yeah, it's interesting because, one of the questions that would always be asked for the first 20 something years of my career when a loan officer is looking to change companies, they'd be like, well, where's your ops center? Because if I'm a West Coast guy and you're an East Coast guy, no matter what you tell me, that's going to create some problems when I need an emergency rush on some docks at 4:30 and it's 7:30 on the East Coast, because I don't expect people to drop dinner and family time to get my docks out, right? And now you ask that question if you're interviewing for a company, they're like, oh, well, we got people all over. I'm like, well, great. That doesn't solve my problem of needing to know that my team is on the West Coast. So I actually recently made a company change. I made sure our little pod of LOA, processor, post-closing customer service, customer success manager, underwriter, dock drawer, like if they weren't all on the West Coast, I might have considered a different company because like this stuff matters.
Yeah, you have to. It's almost like, okay, so random selection, I could get somebody that's in our general area, but what if they're busy or they're out? Then I'm screwed. It's unpredictable. It's not regular, and I don't like that either. So I don't blame you there. You got to have some certain level of expectation that your stuff's going to get taken care of.
I want to ask, just because you do have this interesting background in secondary and actually knowing the inner workings of bank and finance, what does your crystal ball tell you, right? Because we're filming this in October of 2024. Everybody has been saying for over a year and a half, oh, rates are going to come down. The job reports numbers are bogus. The margins, between like the 10-year and where mortgage rates are landing. A lot of people have a lot of excuses for why this is going to get better. But what I keep telling people is this could also just be our new normal.
New
Rates,
normal. I hate the
rates.
term new normal, but that's yeah, you have to act like that. Yeah, obviously, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell anything more than anybody else, but the the rate cut didn't have the effect we thought it would. We got a shitty economic report on Friday that didn't help anything. Hell, I just reposted on social media the mortgage memes thing of RIP to the refi boom of
Yes, I saw that too.
2024. So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of funny. I think that we are going to see continued, obviously a continued Fed funds rate cut. I think that rates are going to improve over the next 6 to 8 months. I don't know how the election's going to pan out. That's going to drive a lot of it. But regardless, we can't bet on stuff that we don't know and don't have any control over. What we have to
Right.
do is focus on what we can control now.
Yep.
What can we do to help improve our business, right? Be proactive about things. Take control of your database, of your referral partner relationships. This is just the world we live in right now. Is it going to get better? Maybe. Should. I hope so. But you can't bet on that, right? We've been now in 2 years of, oh, yeah, don't worry. It's gonna be 6, 8 months from now. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
We've been doing that for 2.5 years now.
Yeah. What do you think that comes from? Do you think that comes just from like optimism that things will get better? Do you think your average loan officer is just totally ignorant to the things that actually drive the finances of our business? Do you think maybe it should be better and there's just like some big grand banking conspiracy? Like what's your take on why loan officers are habitually optimistic about the market and habitually pessimistic of their own ability to produce?
So that's as salespeople, we generally most sales folks have a inherent optimism about the future outlook, right? Otherwise, I mean, who's going to stay in a business where oh man, it's going to be all gloom and doom for the next foreseeable future?
Yeah.
I mean, no, you can't. I mean, mentally you can't do that. But at the same time, I think you've seen a lot of LOs move away from trying to dissect and understand a lot of the market stuff that affects them day to day. And that's okay to a degree, but also you need to have a good understanding of it because you need to be able to explain it to your customers. But bigger picture, I know I'm kind of jumping around, but bigger picture, I think that a lot of people don't take what the Fed says very seriously anymore because it seems to be just kind of brushed off and ignored now. Not entirely, obviously, but I think you see that you see my point. It's just a lot of sound and fury, but not really signifying anything.
Yeah. So wait, let me clarify that. Do you think the Fed is what they're saying is mostly ignored because they're generally wrong and people have just lost trust in them? They're kind of the Fed's skating to where the puck was, as Barry Habib likes to say. Or do you think people have stopped listening to them just because they're sick of it? Why have we lost trust in them and why is what they're saying wrong?
Both. I think that as loan officers, we tend to tune out things that negatively impact our mindset, and so bad news for a long time is generally not good for the mindset.
Right.
Two, also, you get kind of deaf to it. You get kind of numb to it. It's like, oh, okay, so it didn't happen again. We're gonna keep going. Oh, this report fell short of expectations. This didn't have, whatever it is. Like we're getting kind of the point where like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. Oh, they revised the job numbers instead of creating 50,000 jobs. We lost 20,000 jobs. That would have been nice to know 3 months ago when I needed rates to go down.
That's supposed to help things. No, because people have already priced that into their models because they knew it was coming 3-4 months ago. So no surprise. Yeah, you enjoyed an increase, but it's already been taken into account. Not now. So it's just one more disappointment.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us about the podcast. Why a podcast? Who are you interviewing? What are you talking about? Were you just like me during COVID and you're like, I should add one more thing to my plate? Like, what's going on there?
So the idea of a podcast had always been kind of floating around, my head for probably a year or so before I started it. And it's one of those things where I either shit or get off the pot, right? I was just going to do it or not do it. And yeah, it was something where I was like, okay, what am I going to talk about? I don't really want to just do another mortgage one. I don't want to. So it's just trying to find something to talk about, basically, right?
Right.
I mean, I could talk about baseball and football, but you know what? So can 1 million other podcasts. Not that mine's anything unique or special either, but yeah. So I thought, okay, let me see if I can do something that will help bring one or two tidbits per episode to somebody that'll help them grow their business, right? And so I made it sales and business development oriented and based, but with kind of a mortgage and real estate twist, just by virtue of my background, right?
Yeah.
So we've had it's strictly an interview show. I get folks on, asking questions, give them opportunity to share their thoughts on whatever sales topic of the day or mortgage, real estate, whatever. And yeah, run it. So it's called the Big Skip Energy Podcast. As we all know, that is a pun. So I get asked all the time, like, how did I come up with that name? Well, I cannot take credit for that name. So a college buddy of mine, I was talking to him about podcasts. He's like, hey man, what should I name it? And he's like, I think you should call it the Big Skip Energy Podcast. I was like, I love it. I love it. Let's do it. So I started running with that, man. I wish I could take creative credit for it, but I didn't.
So, obviously there's a story there, but how much does, we'll just call it energy generally, maybe that's physical and mental health, maybe that's how you project yourself to an audience. Like sometimes I'm kind of frustrated I can't do this podcast standing up because I just have more energy standing up.
Yeah.
How important to the sales industry and the individual salesperson is, we'll just go with energy, and you can define that however you want.
So the reason I named it that is because I am a big believer in the fact that energy is contagious. People feed off one another's, presence, and kind of going back to the working in the office thing, right?
Right.
But people feed off one another, and I think that's very, very, very important. That they have access to information that can help keep them going, keep them trying to always improve, just power through the day. And dominate the day is the tagline for it. And that's what I want to try to help everybody, just provide one little nugget, for them to help them better dominate their sales day.
I want to ask about that dominate the day, because in the book, The Endless Game, right, Simon Sinek writes about how the problem with work is it's never done, right? You're never going to get to the end of the day and be like,
well, especially in our business.
Especially in our business. All the sales calls were made. I touched all my realtors. I touched all my clients. I talked to all my pre-approvals. I got those marketing flyers out. No, like you're always going to leave the day at work with 30 more things you could have done, should have done, have to do tomorrow, have to do next week, whatnot. Yep. So when you say dominate the day, like strategically, tactically, what does that mean? Because I could tell you right now, and I could tell you this in like full confidence, I dominated today. I had 3 important calls. I did my 10 sales calls. I followed up with everybody in my CRM that I'm trying to get applications from so we can refinance them one day if rates tick back down. I could very easily say, Skip, as your coaching client, I killed it today. I dominated the day. And then on the other side of the equation, I could easily say, Skip, there was 8 more clients I could have called. I didn't schedule my day perfectly so I could go to my kid's 5 p.m. jiu-jitsu. I'm having a cigar tonight with somebody who's going to pitch me on a new project that I might accidentally say yes to and put more shit on my calendar I don't have time for. So the reality is, Skip, my day was shit. And it's like, I could look at my day through that same lens. So how are you coaching people, 1, to dominate their day, and then 2, just accept like, I did what I could. Like the best I can do is the best I can do.
Yeah. So the answer to that is twofold. One is we always focus on a specific set of metrics because you have to be able to measure it, right? We got to be able to quantify the qualifiable.
Ooh, I like that. Say that again.
We have to be able to quantify the qualifiable. And that's hard to do. So what we have to do as salespeople is we got to go out there and say, okay, what are the cornerstones of my business? Okay, whether it's, if you're an LO, it better be prospecting, pipeline management, and throw in whatever else you want to do, and you set out to do a specific time or number of tasks about those, and along with everything else, for your day. And then the second part of this is reflection. I always coach everybody. I say, hey, look, before you close that laptop, before you turn off the light, before you just tune out and watch Monday Night Football, which I'll be doing in a little bit. The way that you say, okay, did my day reflect my non-negotiables, which are what I just mentioned? Did I impact somebody positively, and did I get closer to my goals, my larger goals, right? If you can answer yes to those three questions, that's best you can do. It doesn't focus on what you could have done better, even though I strongly encourage people to always self-examine, right? But it focuses on what you set out to do, and did you do it?
Right.
Just for that one little microcosm of your work.
Man.
And if you did, then hey, you dominated.
I love that. In a couple months here, I'm going to ask you for a guest spot on your podcast because we have a new product coming out. We did a joint venture with this company called Panda Planner, which is like a physical planner. It's exactly what you're talking about. Start your day with intention, end your day with intention. Did I make the sales call? What did the calendar look like?
I can't grab it right now, but I've got a Kairos planner that I give out to my training client.
Awesome, man. Well, we're going to be doing one of those for salespeople. It's the Panda Planner Sales Pro. And it's exactly what you're talking about. Like, if you start the day with intention, you get in a workout, you move those 3 big rocks or that big project at work, and then you close the day with intention, like a win's a win, right? We're not gonna crush it every day.
But at the same time, like, you have to be committed to those non-negotiables. So, okay, before I close my laptop, before I turn it off, will I have done those specific tasks regarding those 1, 2, or 3 themes, right? If the answer is no, then you don't quit until you do.
Yeah.
If the answer is yes, then hey, go for it. And the same thing goes. Don't feel like you got to work 12 or 14 hours a day if you finish what you set out to do in 4.
Yeah.
Enjoy the time.
Yeah.
We don't have to spend our entire life working. Coming from somebody who has like 3 different ventures, but you follow what I'm saying though.
You're like, I finished my day job. That was 8 hours. Now I got to go start my other 2 jobs. I know how that feels.
That's right.
Man.
But yeah, man, that's how you do it.
Well, I feel like we could bounce coaching ideas off each other for about 5 hours. So the next time you're in Vegas, we got to do one of these over a cigar in person where we get 2 or 3 hours. I know you're on a hard out because you're traveling tomorrow to a conference you're speaking at, and Monday Night Football kicks off in about 5 minutes. So I always like to close with like a couple questions. For you, you're going to get a couple extra ones because you're a coach and a Star Wars fan. So it's, we're filming this at the end of 2024. What are you most looking forward to going into 2025? And that could be you personally, that could be macro, micro, whatever. What are you most looking forward to going into 2025? What's your favorite movie and why? And then, of course, I got to ask you, who's your favorite Star Wars character since you got all that memorabilia behind you?
Yeah. All right. So first thing is planning session and season is one of my favorite times of the year. I recorded a podcast earlier with a coworker. He's also a coach and trainer, and he and I are of the same mindset. I love this time of year because it's time to reflect back and set the stage for what you're going to do next year. And I love, so for that first quarter of the year, I love seeing people kind of start working their plan, right?
Yeah.
Obviously that's where the hiccups go. If you can really get past that first 3 months, more times than not, you're going to be sticking with it for the remainder of the year. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love seeing that. For me personally, 2025, I am looking forward to continuing just to grow. And I mean that personally, professionally. This is going to be probably more information than you want, but I'm going to finish up a book in 2025. So, that's going to be a massive undertaking to finish up. So
I'll give you a tip because this is the only way I finished my book. I told my wife and kids, I was like, hey, daddy's going to go sit in a hotel at Huntington Beach until this book is done. And I was like, I could only budget for about 4 days. So 10 hours a day for 4 days, we got the book done. I had the outline, I had all the thoughts, but it's like I had to remove myself from all the distractions of work, family, house, Netflix, doing the laundry. So find a nice hotel on the coast there and go lock yourself in a room until it's done.
I love it, man. Yeah, it's funny. Another sales trainer out there I had on my show, his name's Jeff Bajorek. He's not mortgage. He's just general sales training, right? I was asking him about one of the books that he wrote, and he was like, I was like, yeah, did you have to put a lot of thought into it, do it over? So he's like, no, I just did it because it needed to be done. All right. Well, in that case, we'll just go with that.
Oh man, I like that guy. I don't have that.
know, man.
I don't have that
Yeah,
discipline. I had a book on the like roadmap for like 5 years before I finally sat down and did it. So good for that guy, overachiever.
Okay, so all right, what was your next question?
Favorite movie and why?
Favorite movie. So I am a big movie guy. I do enjoy them. I would say all-time favorite movie. I'm just gonna give you it's gonna seem like a generic answer. Godfather Part 1 and 2.
It's hard to argue with that.
Yeah, I know. But then at the same time, I could also tell you that that Trading Places is also in my top 5. So.
That is a phenomenal movie, dude. A lot of people, especially people under, let's say, 35, have no appreciation for Eddie Murphy.
No, Coming to America, Trading Places.
Yeah,
it's all good stuff, man. But yeah, so Godfather Part 1 and 2, I just fell in love with them as a teenager. I love the artistry of the movie. I like a lot of the concepts. I like the character arcs in it. It's just I just have always loved it.
Favorite Star Wars character and why, and then I'll let you go for football and pack for your trip.
All right, man. So favorite Star Wars character is Obi-Wan Kenobi. So
shocking coming from a coach and trainer.
Well, I was going to say, not the most exciting one in the world, but he's done a hell of a lot without all the glitz and the glamour. So,
I heard a lot of people who I respect, whether they're YouTube critics or friends, that hated the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I thought it was a great show of like
I really
kind of a broken man who's like kind of past his goal. I thought it was a phenomenal show, and a lot of people hated on that.
Makes me really want them to remake A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
And with some more CGI in there and redo that the whole Obi-Wan Kenobi fight with Darth Vader, the whole thing there. It'd be cool to watch.
There is like a 10-minute fan film on YouTube. Have you seen that? Oh, it's phenomenal.
It's pretty slick. It's pretty slick.
All right, man. Well, I'll let you go. Thanks for being on. And please let me know when you're going to be out here in Vegas for a trade show so we can sit down and do a longer episode.
Absolutely. Love to do it, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right. Talk to you soon.